Hello, I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and welcome to my vlog, where it is both my mission and my pleasure to highlight my creative journey in hopes of inspiring you, giving you a specific takeaway, all that way your journey can be at least a little bit easier. Now, before I fully dive into things, I would like to take the opportunity to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. That way you get all the various lessons and episodes that I put out right when I put them out. Thank you if you just did, and thank you if you already were. It truly does mean a lot to me, as I hope it does to you. So this past week was kind of very interesting. It was all kinds of activities, things of that nature. But I want to begin with this documentary called Dream is Destiny, which is about Richard Linklater. Now, this is a documentary that I'd seen a while ago, but it came back to me because there was an interaction that I had at the start of the week that, I don't know, it was very interesting, and I commend myself for handling it with grace and, just very proud of how I handled it because, essentially, I was speaking with somebody that just had no respect for essentially anything that I did, or just like the entertainment industry in general. But, certainly it was in that moment a personal indictment of myself. And yet, as with all things, it's not really about the person, it's more a reflection of who they are. But it was very interesting to kind of see that. And the reason why it brought up for me this documentary was because Dream is Destiny, if you know Richard Linklater and his body of work, dating back to his first movies, people just didn't believe him. They wrote him off. And he gained notoriety for the movies and stuff like that, but people kept always writing him off, and like he was this outside sort of maverick and so forth. And his movies are quirky and weird, like Waking Life. He was like, the way he did it as like a rotoscope film, and it's, doesn't really have a plot. It's just more philosophical exploration of what it means to be alive, essentially. And, Before Sunrise, that was kind of the first of its kind in that way, where, he's just kind of like a trailblazer in many ways, and just, like his movies have plot, and they feel very satisfying, and yet like they're not typical in that way. Dazed and Confused certainly is just kind of exploration of of high school and post high school. But so ultimately, what I'm saying is this documentary is very inspiring, and so last episode of the vlog, I talked about this idea that look at your negative beliefs, whatever's kind of weighing you down, and instead write down something that you would prefer to believe, instead of that. And then find evidence of that, let your confirmation bias go to town. And so this idea that, your stuff's weird, or, there's no value to it or stuff like that is all BS because, literally someone said that to Richard Linklater, and there's plenty of artists who hear that all the time, especially early on in their careers, and then they go on and make it, right? And no one's any more the wiser, right? So it's just one of those things that, to me, I always look for inspiration, and especially in like documentaries and stuff like that. I think, those are lives lived, and so whether it is something artistic, like Dream is Destiny, following Richard Linklater, who is a film director, or something completely different. To me, I'm just in awe of, what we can be capable of in the pure sense. And I think documentaries allow for that. And this is certainly one up there for me that I really, really love. And, if anything, there will be a lot of naysayers in your life as you come up. We all deal with critics, and there's that very famous I think it's a poem, The Man in the Arena, right? Like, at the end of the day, what matters is the man in the arena. Everyone else can take their shots at you and stuff like that, but you're actually in the arena doing it. And, that's what's so interesting to me. Even people within this industry will take shots at you, and yet what's always fascinating to me is when they aren't doing anything, right? They're just so stuck in their fear-based bubble. And yeah, yet they have no problems criticizing you. And it's like, well, what have you done? You've been in this business for a number of years, and yet you still cling on to X, Y, and Z and haven't taken a leap of faith on yourself and, progressed anything. If others are hiring you for all these jobs, great. But if not, then, to me, it's like you got to create your own destiny. You got to show people why you are worth taking a shot on. And like that for me, I think a big distinction, there are a lot of people that I see that feel entitled, and they're upset because they feel like their talent should already have yielded more results than they are. Whereas for me, I know I have talents, but I don't feel entitled in that way, and hence why, listen, if people want to join me and fund my movies, nothing would make me happier. But I'm not going to sweat it if they're not, and I will find a way to do it myself. And that's what I've been doing. And the irony of all of that is then people are much more likely to give it to you because they don't want to miss out. And furthermore, there's something tangible that they can look at and be like, okay, yeah, no, I like this. I want to go along on this journey, right? So at the current moment, people can look at 2 feature films of mine, narratives, and see sort of my style. They can look at my books, and all the other stuff that I've ever created, right? And they can kind of get a sense of who I am. And that's great because that's all out there. But, when there's no data, right, for lack of a better term, how can one do that? And it's not to say that, even now, as I'm creating this animated movie, it's completely different of the 2 movies that I made, so far. And the reason for that is because, I have different styles that I want to try, and, and the way I approach those was indicative of the stories that I wanted to tell at the moment, and the way in which those were best told in terms of the narrative and in terms of the budget and the constraints, right? So I leaned into that. But, like any artist, like Hayao Miyazaki is one of my favorite artists. He has such a wide range of stories that he tells, And so that to me is beautiful, and I try to sort of want to emulate that because I do have various interests, and I want to try. And that is the beauty of my approach in many ways, is because I don't get pigeonholed, I'm not just like a horror director or, this romance director. Like, I have tons of interests and I want to try them all and, bump my head along the way and grow because of it, right? That to me is the interesting part. And that's why I do, as I said, love my approach in that way, because it allows for that exploration rather than, oh no, I got to deliver, this movie and it's got to be X, Y, and Z, under these sort of certain constraints. So, I can play with genre tropes and stuff like that and so forth, right? That to me is the fun part. And that's what I'm doing, but it's always interesting, going back to the idea of haters. Like, they just, it's so interesting to me. Like, they just think, like, on the one hand, they know it's not easy, right? Otherwise they'd be doing it. And yet they think for others it is so easy, right? And I just want to almost, in a sense, like, put up a filmmaker challenge to, like, anyone who rags on anyone else and, like, you know what, it's so easy. I'll give you the same budget I have or had on my second feature film, and go to another country, find other actors to be in it, convince them, plan it all out, write the script, One of the requirements that I would do is like you have to license a song that is from that country, it has to play in your movie, right? And you have to do it within the budget that you have. Deliver it, and it has to be a narrative feature, anywhere between 85 minutes and 95 minutes. And go for it, you know what I mean? Like, because it's so easy. And what's fun is that this past weekend, my friends and I, we went to this thing called Smorgasburg LA, which is basically like a food truck fair every Sunday at the Row in downtown LA. And the reason I bring this up is because it was like a mini reunion. It was the guys from my second feature film. We haven't seen each other in a long time, not all of us together. I might have seen each of them individually, but like all of us together as a group. And yeah, it was just fun to sort of reminisce. And yeah, the hardships become those great stories. And as I talk about in another episode, there is distinction to me between pushing ourselves to our limit versus a toxic work environment. And, there was definitely a particular mishap that happened that like I have a lot of regret over and wish, but it was also one of those things that I know in my heart of hearts, I did the best I could. That wasn't the intention. And at the end of the day, we've all sort of now been able to laugh about it. And it is just part of the story. And the reason I'm saying this is because, it's just, it takes effort to do anything meaningful, and just keep going, right? Regardless of what anyone else may say, just keep going and find your way through it. Find like-minded people. Like I'm very grateful for that. There are tons of people that believe in me, want to work with me, and likewise, I think it's a two-way street. And there's, as I look back at my career, certainly, in the past few years as a filmmaker, yeah, sure, there's ways that I could expedite my process. And, if I just focus solely on my script writing and, making my movies, I'd maybe be further ahead, at least in the sense of, like maybe I might be on my third movie already completed and working on my fourth, or whatever the case may be. But to me, I put a high premium on investing in others as well. And so, my friends are constantly writing scripts, filming them, editing them. And so, I like to be involved and help out however I can. For the past couple of weeks, I've been talking about this sizzle reel that my friends have been putting together, and now we're in the final stages of it. And I've been helping guide that along. I helped, I was there filming it, then I helped edit it, and now, like I said, it's in the final stages of everything. And part of that is I coordinated the various people for that stage because, they're people that I work with and I trust and I know they can deliver. So that feels great too, But even if I can't always, do it to that micro level, it's great to sort of just nudge people along, right? There's a friend of mine who wrote like this 5-page pilot for a web series and, asked me if I could read it. I was like, yeah, of course. Like, even if it was longer, I'd do it. I just, sometimes it comes down to time and whatnot. But yeah, I was like, 5 pages, totally, I can read that while I'm waiting somewhere or something like that, right? So I did, and then we had a chat, and it was wonderful. And, she was really inspired. And really, it's not that my notes, I'm not putting an overemphasis on like my genius of like note giving or anything like that. It's not about that. It's more about bringing to light what the person is trying to say and finding that out and helping them unearth that, right? And that's exciting because for them, the answers are there. They just need a little bit of guidance. For lack of a better term, when I'm challenged in terms of, well, why did this happen in the script? Then when I have to like actually verbalize it, it either solidifies it for me or it brings it to light, and it makes me realize, okay, wow, this is the first time I've actually said that, and yeah, that makes sense, except how it's written isn't indicative of that. So I have to alter it accordingly, so that to me is the fun part. And to that effect, I'm sort of now in the phase of writing this script for this animated movie, this animated fantasy. And this past week, I got very far, and it's interesting, the whole reason why I'm writing the script at this current moment, even though, I'd been revising the outline for a number of months and working with my team to get it as polished as possible. And finally, the team felt, hey, listen, sure, there's areas that there's questions on that need, could be finessed and so forth, but that'll come, right? And it'll be more worthwhile to explore it in the script and, see how it all goes. And so that's what gave me the permission to do this. And now reading it, I'm about, let's say, 3/5 done with the script. And it's very different. It's not very different, but you could definitely tell that the scenes based off the outline. You know which scene is what from the outline, and yet how it executes itself is varying more and more. And that's exciting, right? Because it means it's building on the script, building on the outline of what the intentions were and elevating that to a whole new level versus just keeping it as was. And that to me is a fun thing, and it's not an indictment on the outline of how terrible it is. No, if anything, it's okay, this was a stepping stone, a blueprint to get to the script, which is another stepping stone and a more fleshed out blueprint of what the movie will be. And in terms of, my quirky process, the way I want to do this, I do want to, have table reads, of course, but even more so once we get to a point where we feel strongly about the script, I want to film it just in my apartment and edit it together and just have it be very low-key that way, so I can really see the movie from start to finish and finesse it that way before we even ultimately get to the majority of the animation phase, right? So right now, as we're still moving forward, we're creating character design, set design, and so forth. But as far as literally, all the scenes, we won't do that until this phase is done. And speaking of my second feature film, we did a lot of rehearsals, which really, really helped. And all of those were filmed. And I had it, they weren't shot by shot the movie, but at least they were tracking shots of the scene and stuff like that. And I could see it, how it flowed. And it allowed me to revise the script before we ever landed in Colombia. So I could see the movie and see, okay, which scenes need to be punched up, what's unclear, how's the pacing, yada, yada, yada. And that was a very invaluable tool for me. So, I'm kind of taking a similar-ish approach as far as this is concerned. For me, I love to iterate and so forth. And one of my goals is to have this script ready to submit to the Austin Film Festival, which the deadline is May 25th. So as it stands, my goal is to have the script be done by May 17th and then revise it before that May 25th deadline. Now, how it all goes, we'll see. As I've said before in other episodes, I will not submit something that I don't feel is strong, but at least it's a good catalyst to make progress. So that's kind of, where I'm at with it, and also why I'm going to kind of lessen the output of, episodes just to kind of put more of a focus on this, and so forth. The other interesting aspect that I want to talk about was soccer. So soccer for me is, something that I love and I've been doing for a while. You know, I played in college, and still I play competitively here in leagues and stuff like that. And unfortunately, as time goes by, it's this realization hitting me that it might be too much of an intense sport on me and my body. And so, you know, at what point do you quit in that way? You know, because of injuries and so forth, like they really take a lot out of you. And the thing of it is, I don't necessarily have a problem quitting soccer as I thought about it, because I'll find something else, right, to like, for the physical activity side of it. The thing that, you know, I grab onto that would suck the most is soccer for me has been one of the most social aspects of my life, and that's ultimately why I love soccer. You know, that bond that is created with people that you're on a field with is just immense, right? And my best friendships have come from that, you know, and I'm talking, you know, guys, girls, whoever, you know. It's just that camaraderie that comes from it is invaluable. And that's what would suck if I were to quit soccer in itself. But we'll see. I don't know. Certainly that's been sort of weighing on my mind and stuff of that nature. But yeah. And then the other thing, you know, yeah, like I said, I mean, just to kind of wrap things up, been writing this script and really focused on that, especially because of the May 25th deadline. But also, I've had the pleasure of seeing various friends that I haven't seen in a while, and catching up with them, and that's been great, and having like philosophical talks and debates. And also, you know, there was 2 friends that I got to meet up with this weekend, and I saw Suzume again with them, which I really love. Like, as a movie, it's continues to grow on me in the best of ways. You know, who knows, it might end up being my favorite movie of the year. But it was great to share it with, you know, 2 people who, for them, you know, aren't as big into animation, let's say, and one in particular, you know, isn't, but like, she was crying by the end of the movie. That's how much like it had an effect on her, and it was just so profound and beautiful that I loved it. So yeah, you know, again, if anything, it speaks to the idea that, yeah, you know, if I have this May 25th deadline, the obvious choice might be, you know, lock myself up and just write until it's good enough. But I don't know, I also value living life, the friendships that I have. You know, as I said, these were people that I had not seen in a while. You know, there was a couple that, you know, I absolutely love. My friends Howie and Fern, and they sort of, you know, texted me last minute like, hey, we're going to be free tonight, you know, would you want to get dinner tonight? And though I had some other stuff kind of there, I was like, hey, I can do, you know, after this time if that works for you. They're like, totally. And we made it happen, and you know, there was no doubt in my mind. I was like, listen, I love these people, I haven't seen them in a while, like let's go. And it was just such a blast, you know. So yeah, invest in life as much as your art, you know, to the extent that you can, because, you know, we're only here for a fleeting moment. And yeah, so thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I truly do appreciate you. As always, comment down below or hit me up on social media at Phil Svitek. You know, we're based on whatever I'm talking about or whatever you would like to hear me talk about. And if you think that I might be of benefit to you with whatever it is you're creating, well then consider signing up for my Patreon page, patreon.com/Phil Svitek. It's essentially a cheap way to, you know, get my input instead of having to pay for full coaching, you know. And it's $10 a month. There's just one tier for everybody, so everyone gets the same thing. That to me feels right. So, you know, if that's not a financial burden, and you know, you would like to gain the benefits of our interaction more directly, then, you know, consider that. Anyway, thank you so much, and I hope to see you next time.